The distribution systems need to be in place so that we can connect the food waste or the wasted food to those who need it.
Get the food that would otherwise be wasted to people who need it. We're not only fighting hunger, but we are actually slowing global warming.
Dumpster after dumpster after dumpster was filled to the brim with perfectly good food.
Today, on average, Americans will throw away about 15 to 25% of the food they purchase. Since 1974, food waste has increased by 50%. We need to find a solution to this growing issue that is hardly even being addressed.
Food waste is a huge problem nationwide, but it is overlooked throughout media. Most Americans fail to realize the problem or fail to know the consequences of such excessive food waste.
Hopefully by the end of this video, you will have a better understanding of this growing problem and advocate for change yourself.
We randomly selected a few students on the University of Kentucky's campus to hear their take on food waste.
Do you see food waste as a problem on our campus?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yes, I do see food waste as a problem at the University of Kentucky because whenever I go to Champions or the Nandi, I always see massive amounts of food left on plates.
You see people fill up their plates with a lot of food and not eat it all.
When I go to the cafeteria, I notice that a lot of people don't finish what they start to eat.
Do you think the university is doing enough to prevent food waste?
I think that there's always room for improvement, so they could probably do more.
No, because the workers come out with recycling bins for food only every once in a while, but I think they should do it more often to make sure that not all food is being wasted.
I have heard of a few ways that the university is trying to prevent food waste, such as the campus kitchen, but there's always more that can be done.
Actually, 40% of the food produced in the United States ends up in a landfill. Many of us don't think twice about where that food is going once it ends up in the trash can. It ends up in giant landfills where it actually creates environmental dangers. This means that Americans will throw away $165 billion of perfectly good food each year. This isn't food that is left on your plate, but it's food that has been untouched that could be going to a much better cause. Roughly 1 in 7 Americans are not provided with a sustainable amount of food each day. Reducing food waste by 15% is enough to feed 25 million Americans every year. Why throw away food when it could be going to the people who need it most?
The world is wasting food at an alarming rate. As you can see from the graph, the United States and the rest of North America are leading the way for the greatest amount of food waste, with approximately 280 kilograms per year. The food wasted by the United States and Europe alone could feed the world 3 times over. The excessive amount of food waste being thrown into landfills results in the pollution of groundwater. For example, when the waste comes in contact with rain, it produces harmful chemicals, such as ammonia. The chemicals could then be absorbed into water supplies and even end up in lakes and rivers. This poses a threat to the organisms that inhabit the water because the polluted water can lead to their death. The enormous piles of food waste in the landfills can cause large fires to be ignited. This adds to the air pollution, and wildlife animals that scavenge for food around the landfill could be harmed or killed in the fire. 25% of fresh water throughout the United States is used to make food. A lot of this food is ultimately wasted. Therefore, not only is food being wasted, but also huge amounts of water when food gets thrown out, along with the toxic chemicals it emits when decomposing.
Not only does food waste affect the earth itself, but it's also hurting our atmosphere at the same time. As food waste decomposes in landfills, it produces methane, which is about 20 times more harmful and damaging to the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. Ultimately, this destroys the ozone layer, which leads to higher temperatures around the world. Chad Frischman from the Washington Post explains that 8% of total greenhouse gas emissions are created from food waste. If this were a country, it would be third behind the United States and China. This has become such a pressing issue that some restaurants have started taking action and making efforts to reduce food waste.
Many local restaurants and restaurant chains are trying to combat the problem of food waste. Olive Garden is one restaurant that has actually started a system that continuously provides excess food to charities. They started the Olive Garden Harvest Program, a program that donates perfectly good food to local food banks to combat the problem of hunger. Since its start in 2003, they have donated more than 38 million pounds of food. This isn't the only company that's helping the cause, though. Starbucks just recently announced that by 2020, they hope to donate 50 million pounds of food to charities and food banks every year. However, these restaurants are still a minority. Most restaurants and companies don't donate their food because they feel like they are wasting their time and money. It actually helps companies to donate their excess food because they receive tax breaks and it allows more space for fresh food. More advocacy and support for this problem will lead to more restaurants and grocery chains donating excess food. One way that we can gain more support and educate more people is through the use of social media.
In present day, the general public receives news through social media or TV. The younger generation goes to various different apps to get their news, while the older generation tends to only watch the news on the TV. Both forms of media have overlooked food waste throughout the years as they focus on politics and tragedies. After many years of wasting food, it has now been brought to the attention of the media, but is still not properly broadcasted to the population.
About the food we eat. It's a story about the food we don't eat, because there is a surprising amount of it.
Since so many people are not educated on this issue, there is a lack of motivation to find a solution. If people do not know there is an issue, how are they supposed to work on fixing it?
So what can we do as students to fix this growing issue? According to ReFed, the standard date labeling practice causes great confusion for Americans as to when to properly dispose of the food they buy from grocery stores. The terms used by or best before causes 90% of Americans to dispose of fresh food, totaling up to 20% of consumer food waste. By changing the labels to terms such as best if used by or freeze by, consumers will have greater clarity as to when they should throw out their food. Another way that we can work towards fixing this issue is by advocating. Some students on the University of Kentucky's campus have even began to come together to start up their own advocacy programs.
There are steps being taken here on UK's campus to combat food waste and food insecurity. We sat down with two organizations here on campus that work to fight the problem of food waste and food insecure students at UK. Meghana Kujamati, the director of Big Blue Pantry and senior student here at UK, filled us in on what they are trying to accomplish.
So we are a food pantry in the basement of Whitehall, and we provide all sorts of basic needs for students on campus. In terms of what the pantry has done, we take a lot of the leftover produce and a lot of the leftover foods from events like the one that Campus Kitchens puts on. If another organization in the Center for Community Outreach has an event with a lot of food that they're just going to throw away, we take all of that to the pantry.
The next organization working to fight against food waste and food insecurity is Stop Hunger. We talked with Izzy Thomas, a freshman at UK, on how food waste is related to food insecurity.
Food waste starts at the production level, so you have about 40% of the food that U.S. produces goes straight to the landfill, and that's because of FDA regulations. That's because of just like consumers' ideals for like what food looks like and what supermarkets can and can't stock. And so that's already, like, we could feed all of the people that are food insecure in America with that food that we're already wasting. But from there it just gets worse because you have a lot of food waste on like the household level, like again with that abundance of food. And so that huge amount of waste I think does not cause food insecurity, but definitely exacerbates it.
We hope our PSA sparked the realization that food waste is a key problem in the world that needs to be addressed. It is our job to help find a solution to this ongoing problem that most Americans fail to even realize is an issue.
After watching this, we hope you have a better understanding of this growing problem and advocate for change yourself. Hopefully, it has given you some ideas for how you can make a difference and make a positive change in our environment. It is up to us to make that difference. If you are interested in helping or are in need of food yourself, information for the Campus Kitchen and Big Blue Pantry will be shown.